Hey everybody, hope you're all doing well. My name is Steven and this is the Storytime channel. Just a quick reminder that we have a giveaway going on all this week, so if you don't know how to enter and are interested, stay tuned until later in the video and I'll tell you exactly how to. But without delaying the stories any further, let's jump right into our first story of the day by ladyreyreigns. I need a doctor's note to stop teaching? Okay, let's play. Background. Back in January, I took a teaching position at a Title I school. Title I generally means families have low income and schools have very few resources. I was fine with that. I took over the Algebra 1 class in the middle of the year because the other teacher had had enough. That should have been a sign, but I took the job anyway. As spring break began to stretch on, I had accepted that we wouldn't be going back to school for the year. I got a call from the principal of the elementary school. The district where I worked had one elementary, two middle, and one high school. Shortly after spring break, aka before the changes to teaching were made, offering me what was pretty much a dream position for the 2020-2021 school year. I took the position and signed a contract. As the debates, lies, and harassment about the upcoming fall semester carried on over the summer, my mental health plummeted. I mean, almost rock bottom. That led to even more physical health concerns and a stronger course of medication for mental health. I was terrified and often went into a panic at the drop of a hat. Awful things were being said to us and thrown at us. Towards the end, I cried just opening and reading emails from the school. So I decided that this job where I had zero resources and was under the poverty line, even fully employed, wasn't worth my mental and physical health. We were going to have to triple our responsibilities with half of the supplies we needed. I quit and turned in a very professional resignation letter. Here's where it gets interesting. My principal and superintendent tried to counter my resignation because I was under contract, even though they'd violated it already, but that's another story. And it took several well-written emails to be released without penalty. I'm one of the few teachers actually licensed in my area, so they didn't want to lose me, even if that meant making me angry. I resigned for health reasons, kept vague in my letter, never give them more info than they need. And the superintendent said I needed a doctor's note. He informed me of this 2.5 hours before the board meeting. The school board has to release you from your contract if the superintendent counters the action. Is scheduled. Okay, let's play. I scrambled and my primary care doctor sent a note over. 3 minutes after the deadline to get it submitted to the board. The superintendent pulled the, "We haven't told teachers yet, but we're starting the year online, so this note doesn't count because you have to prove you can't work from home." Okay, I called up my psychiatrist. I've been seeing him for 6 years for depression and anxiety, and some other stuff that's not relevant. There's a particular nurse there who has a thing for people who mess with disabled people. Now, I function very well and work very hard, so my disabilities don't seem obvious, but they are still very much there. She drew up this absolutely scathing letter about how the district has caused intense emotional stress and created a dysfunctional work environment. She referenced an ADA bylaw too, I think. She sent it down to my psychiatrist's office to get it signed. He reviews everything, and I said, okay, hang on, let me try one more thing. I had not previously responded to the superintendent's email about a second note, but I decided I needed to. I sent back a short email that said that I was disappointed that I would need to share such private medical information after already supplying an original note, but that my psychiatrist would be sending one over because I wanted to do my best to comply with your requests. Apparently, psychiatrist and disability are the magic words for getting out of a contract because of how many lawsuits those words open up. I got a call later that day from my principal. The superintendent didn't even have the guts to call me himself, saying that I've been released from my contract. I called my nurse back and let her know that I didn't need that note because they decided one was enough, but it's still in my file in case the district tries to reverse their decision. Please do not tell me I'm a horrible person for giving up on the kids or that I'm being selfish. I've heard it all and I don't need it again. So first and foremost, for any person, mental health is the most important thing. I would think that you always need to be in the best mindset, and even though they did accept the position, assuming that they were able to deal with that and work through that, it ended up being too much for them. It ended up being too much of a mental burden, and there's just no way that it's reasonable to expect them to work through that. Do you guys agree with me, or do you think OP was actually in the wrong here? Yes or no? Let me know in the comments down below. The next story is by Holdfireblondie. Lesson plans must be posted by the door. My first year as a teacher, I worked in one of the largest schools still left in New York City. Our bosses were jerks. Teachers are required to have a lesson plan every day, but nowhere required it like this school. They wanted them printed out and posted by the door every day. They'd come by and pick them up occasionally, and if they didn't like you and your lesson, they'd come observe you and give you a hard time. Now, New York City has a rule that says that the bosses can't tell you a specific format for how the lessons plans are written or where to write them. So they could be digital like a Google Doc, written in a book, typed out and printed, or it could be written in ketchup on a pizza box. One coworker who was sick of my boss's stuff and on her last year in the system, duct taped her plan to the door written in ketchup on a pizza box. She is my hero. She said it took a lot longer than just typing it out, but she was sick of so much nonsense that she needed to make a point. Teaching kids is one of the most important things for the development of children, but I can see how there would very easily be way too much micromanagement to the point where it just pisses off teachers, and that's needless considering how much teachers get paid. I would very easily put some stock into assuming that it was some bad apple teachers that caused this very dumb rule to get blown up and enforced for every teacher. And then it ends up becoming this system that can be abused and picking favorites, which surely was never the intention. Our next story is by Aidedfurball, Assistant Manager Gatekeeping the Storage Room. I used to work at Big Lots about 5 years ago. Honestly, it was a fun job. Not the best paid job, but fun nonetheless. We had a new assistant manager, who I'll call Kim, come in, and God, do I have so many stories about her. She wasn't a bad person, but she wasn't a good manager, if that makes sense. Anyways, Kim and I did not get along very well, and she and I would constantly butt heads on anything. One day, corporate decided that associates were no longer allowed to go in the back of the store where we keep our extra stock. None of us believed it at first. We thought she was making it up because she was still new, and like most new assistant managers, she was making new changes, and we thought this was one of them. Nope, this one was a change corporate made, and none of us were happy about it. So about a week after the new policy was up, we were all in the back unloading the truck for the week, and we got our first pallets to our station so we can stock the store. I finished my first pallet, and out of habit and just simply forgot, I went to the back to get my second pallet so that I can get back to stocking, and wouldn't you know it, the Kim caught me right as I got the jack for the pallet. "What are you doing back here?" "Getting a second pallet. I already finished my first pallet, so I came here to pick up the next one." "You do know you're not supposed to be back here anymore, right?" "I do, but I forgot. I just came back here out of habit." "Whatever. Next time just stay at your station, and when you're done, I'll pull up your next pallet." She let me take the second pallet to my new station, and after I had finished, I did what she told me to do. I stayed at my station. I think it took about 3 to 5 minutes before she came up to me pissed. "What are you doing now? Why aren't you working?" "I'm just following policy, ma'am. You told me I'm not allowed to go to the back and get my pallet." "You do know you're wasting company time, right? Why didn't you come tell me that you were done with this pallet?" "You told me to stay in my station when I finished my pallet, so I did. I'm right here at my station." I take a drink of my Dr. Pepper just to annoy her. She was pissed. She knew exactly what I did, and her comprehension of the situation just made her mad. Without a word, she goes back to get my pallet, comes to me, and leads me to my next station and just says, "Come get me when you're done." Aye, ma'am." I started work, and she avoided me for the rest of my shift, until I had to get her for my next pallet. Not the best malicious compliance in this thread, I know, but I thought it was funny. And our hate relationships grew stronger that day. Oh, there ain't nothing like a hate relationship in the workplace. Actually, it kind of sucks. The next story is written by GoodShipHarekaze. Only allowed to leave the ship in a straitjacket? Okay then. This story did not happen to me, but was something that my father witnessed. I won't name the ship. My father was working as a civilian advisor to a group of Royal Navy ships about to go on an exercise, and he recounted this tale which he witnessed. This leading seaman wanted a few weeks' leave which he was actually owed, but was turned down and informed that if he went away, he would be AWOL and he'd only be allowed to leave if he was carried off to the Naval Funny Farm in the sort of coat that ties up behind him. And so went to his chief petty officer, who was quite the jovial sort from all accounts and very close to retirement, which meant he was keen to get a last one in over the officers. After being told the story, he said, "Be part of the flight pad working party at 0930. The chief then went to see his brother, who was a marine musician at the same base, and asked him to get his group onto their ship at the same time as the work party started. Come the next morning, the work party is cleaning and repairing the helicopter pad when the musicians arrive and the chief said loudly, "A band on ship," whereupon the leading seaman took a leap into the dock. A boat was put over the side. The guy was picked up and taken to the base hospital before being sent to a mental rest home for 3 weeks for evaluations. Come the 3 weeks being up, he came back on board and said that he had been asked why he had suddenly dropped his tools and jumped into the dock and was rescued by the dock's guard boat and sent away because he was clearly nuts to jump off a perfectly good ship. The leading seaman told the medical officers at the mental rest home that he had heard the chief call abandoned ship, and so left the ship by the quickest way possible. The leading seaman had a nice 3 weeks rest in the countryside, learned how to paint watercolors, and came back with a commendation for quick reactions, even though it was a false alarm. I mean, that's pretty good. Abandoned ship. I'm just surprised that they so willingly took them right off to the mental rest home. Maybe it was just a sign of, different times. The next story is by Raphasaurus. Don't bother helping me. Okay. So as nurses, if we feel we're in danger or if a patient is overly aggressive, we were allowed to leave the room for our safety. This was while I was in an AIN, equivalent of a CNA in America. Also to note, this patient wasn't in danger if we left her alone. Patient was really aggressive. I answered the call bell as soon as it went off, as it was near the end of my shift and I had nothing to do. I did what I could. Patient was straight away yelling. Got offended when I put on gloves to move her clean underwear. Then when I couldn't find her cleaning thing for her brace as I didn't hear where it was due to her yelling, I asked her again and she came out of the bathroom screaming just as I found it. Gave it to her, then when she couldn't leave it to dry where she wanted, she had another screaming fit and calling me useless, incompetent, stupid, etc. and wouldn't accept my alternative. Her nurse came in to do the medication round during this. Patient directed her anger towards the nurse and I quickly did my alternative drying idea, got a thank you, and she calmed down. Then her nurse was checking the medication and patient's ID. Patient says, "What's taking so long?" Nurse says, "I have to check your medication." "It's the same freaking thing every day, you incompetent woman." Nurse says, "I need you to calm down." Patient flailing her arms around, she was also much larger than teeny tiny me. "I don't need to calm down. If you're not gonna do your job, then don't bother helping me at all." The nurse and I look at each other smiling. Nurse says, "Okay, we won't help you." We then walk out with the patient screaming behind us. Documented it, told the team leader, then I went home shaking as my shift ended 10 minutes prior during all the yelling. I'm surprised I didn't break down with the yelling. I don't like loud noises and it reminds me of my parents when they got angry while I was a kid. Thank you so much, nurse. You saved me. Later found out the patient had done similar stuff on every other ward she was on. Not sure what happened after that, but next time I was on that ward, she had already been discharged. Bless these nurses for having to put up with people like this and working through it as best as they can. I definitely give nurses a lot of credit for the work they do and the hours they do too, especially in the current day situations. The next story is by AkitoPitty. Want me to throw the boxes out the back? Okay. So this isn't a big one like all the others on here, but it's amusing. I work in a restaurant. It's very high volume, which means a lot of prep and a lot of boxes. We had been leaving the boxes at the back door. I break my boxes down and fold them and put them in another box to save space. Well, one of my managers, let's call him Maury, came up to me one day and was like, "Hey, from now on, can you throw your boxes outside?" I look at him and clarify, "You want me to throw my boxes outside instead of setting them by the door?" He nods and walks away. I would like to clarify that I have a good working relationship with him. We joke back and forth and see who can come up with a better insult. I smile, if that's what you want. Later on, when my box was full of broken down boxes, I jammed so many boxes in it was almost bursting, I saw Maury go outside. I took the box, went to the back door, and as Maury watched, threw the box at the dumpster, causing it to burst and fleeing boxes everywhere. He just stared at me open-mouthed. I looked at him and said, "You said to throw the boxes out the back door." He just smiled sheepishly and shook his head. He ended up getting all the boxes up as I had done what he had asked. He watched how he words requests around me now. Like I said, not exciting like the others, but still amusing. I think it's honestly great that OP has that level of levity in their workplace, even though it's kind of a light but also kind of mean-spirited thing. It's all jokey and it's all just about one-upping each other and having a good time with it, and I think that's really fun. So quickly now, I just want to give you info on the giveaway. So if you want to be in with a chance to win $30 in Amazon gift cards, all you have to do is leave a comment pertaining to something you saw in the video on any video we upload this week, and I will pick a winner from a random video on Sunday night after the last video has gone out and announce it on next Monday's video. So feel free to comment on every video from the week to better your chances of winning. Again, I do want to stress that the comment has to be related to the video, so you can't just leave a random comment and expect to win. And whilst you're at it, why not like the video, because it helps more than you know. That being said, our final story of the day is by AeroFX. Go and tell the head teacher. So I was young and a bright kid, but my jokes were pretty terrible. At our primary, junior school, we had all female staff, including the school caretaker. I just want to stress it was a great environment and I loved it there. Anyway, the caretaker was called Mrs. Winterbottom, and I found this rather amusing. So I said to another kid, "Look, I'm Mrs. Winterbottom," and shivered, shaking my butt. Unfortunately, this was within earshot of our class teacher, who said, "That's really disrespectful. If you think it's so funny, go and tell the head teacher." So I did, and I knew there was only one way I was getting away with this. While fake laughing, I said, "Mrs. Wright wanted you to hear this joke. Look, it's Mrs. Winterbottom," and shook my butt again, pretending to shiver. She thought that the class teacher had found it funny, so she fake laughed and sent me on my way. 10,000 big brain IQ move right here. Rebranding it just a little bit so it's not your idea expressively. That was a great idea. But with that being said, that's all the time we have for today. So if you enjoyed the stories today, please consider giving the video a like, and if you haven't, subscribe and turn notifications on so you'll never miss an upcoming video. And if you had a favorite story of the day, let me know which one and why in the comments down below. But no matter what you did, whether it was liking, commenting, subscribing, whatever you did, thank you all so very much for supporting me right here on the Storytime channel. I hope you all have a wonderful day, and as always, I'll be back tomorrow with more Reddit stories right here on the Storytime channel.